And above all else, you should avoid moving to the Berkshires if you can't handle. How's it going, everybody? I'm Cameron Volastro. Today we're going to be talking about 13 reasons why you might want to avoid moving to the Berkshires. And before you go getting in the comment section saying, "Ugh, Cam, making a negative video about the area that I love so much," well, here's the thing. The Berkshires are an absolutely beautiful area with a ton of great reasons as to why you should live here, but there are definitely some drawbacks here too, just like anywhere else. And I think when somebody's considering potentially spending, $1 million+ on a second home here, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to move here for their primary residence, I think it's only fair before you move here that you understand exactly what those things are. So in this video, I'm going to let you know of 13 reasons why you should absolutely avoid the Berkshires. And if these are things that are deal breakers for you, so be it. It is what it is. But anyway, let's dive right into it with our first point, which is seasonal population swings. I want to preface this by saying that there are many people who live in the Berkshires year-round who are very happy here. They actually enjoy the winters. You see, I enjoy the fact that where I live, I'm within like 15 minutes of a couple of different ski areas, and there are draws to living here in the off-season, which would probably be considered our winter months. That being said, there are a lot of people who own second homes here that really only come during the summer months, and there's also a huge influx of people that come up to the area during the warmer months to enjoy the lakefronts and all of the arts and culture here, as well as in the fall. They come in and they see all of the beautiful fall foliage that the Berkshires is world renowned for. So during the off season, it does feel a bit different here. You have less people out and about. Now, if you're okay with the winter months being a little bit quieter, let's move on to the next point, which is rural isolation. If you are accustomed to living in a city where you can walk out your front door and there's just tons of people everywhere, and you can just walk into a shop that's right around the corner from where you live, the Berkshires are going to be a more challenging place for you to find something similar to that if that's something that's really important to you. Now, that's not to say it's impossible. You can certainly find homes that are within walking distance to downtowns. However, many of the homes here are in more of a suburban setting or even a more rural setting where you might not even be able to see your neighbors. And this can certainly be flipped on its head and be a draw to the area if you're trying to get away from people. But if being around people all the time is your thing, not that you can't find it here, this may be a bit more rural of an area than you're looking for, and I think it's fair that you know that ahead of time. Moving on to tourist traffic. During the on-season, we certainly see more traffic here, and while we don't get like New York City style of congestion on our roads, we do notice longer drive times to get to where you're going. When the tourists are in town, they drive around a lot slower. They're looking around at the beauty of the natural landscapes that we have here, and unfortunately they slow us down a little bit. And as a busy guy myself, sometimes I can find myself stuck behind somebody who's going 20 miles an hour, somewhere that I'm usually doing 50 miles an hour, and I don't say the nicest things about them when I'm behind them. I should probably work on that a little bit. But anyway, this does extend also into like restaurant wait times at some of the most popular spots. And it's just the nature of this being a tourist destination. There are times of year when the roads are busier, the businesses are busier, and there's just more people in your way. But I think all of that's kind of to be expected with a destination such as the Berkshires. Real quick, if you enjoy this content and you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe to the channel. It really helps it grow. And also, I just want to let you know I am a local real estate professional here in Berkshire County. If you have any questions about the local real estate economy, or if you're looking to make the move, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to discuss that with you. And it's never too early to reach out. So any questions that you might have, or if you just want to introduce yourself, all my contact information is in the description. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Let's get back into the video. Moving on to distance to amenities. This one is actually kind of a biggie. You see, often people are looking at the Berkshires and they fall in love with things such as the art and culture, which we have a ton of. We have Mass Mocha, which is absolutely incredible for modern art. We have the Clark, we have Jacob's Pillow, we have Tanglewood, and all of this sounds wonderful. You're like, oh my God, I can just, go down to Tanglewood and watch a show after I've spent the day at Mass Mocha, and that's true. But it's not like these things are all within like 5 minutes of each other. I wish they were. But Mass Mocha being all the way in North Adams, and then some of these attractions being as far as Egremont in South County, you're looking at about an hour and a half drive between those two parts of the county. So While all of these things can be accessible to you, they're not necessarily right at your fingertips. And I think it's just important to realize that a lot of these amenities may not be quite as at your fingertips as you may be thinking when you're researching the area. This can even extend to the closest grocery store to the property you're buying if you're looking at somewhere such as Beckett because you want that isolation factor and you want to be away from people. Well, with that comes a drive time to get to your grocery store. Sometimes it can be 20 minutes to get to the local Big Y supermarket where you can go shopping to really stock up your pantry at a reasonable price. Now, this one might be a biggie for some of you. In the Berkshires, we do not always have the best connectivity when it comes to cell service. And that doesn't mean that you're completely cut off from the world here. It just means if you're someone who takes calls while you're driving around all the time, you're definitely going to hit dead zones and your calls are 100% going to drop from time to time, and you just kind of get used to it. Honestly, I'm at the point where the areas that I drive all the time, I know the dead zones and I can actually tell people, hey, I'm about to enter a dead zone and hang up with them beforehand. But that is kind of part of the territory with having grown up here. So of course I have kind of figured some of that out. But if you're new here, you're gonna drop some calls. You're probably gonna experience some frustration with some of the downtowns, even where you might not have great cell service. I know that in Great Barrington, I don't have very good cell service with Verizon there. And it is very frustrating. I have to go to my office there to connect to the Wi-Fi to be able to do any sort of tasks that involve any internet connection. And I could get by with calls in Great Barrington, but any sort of internet-based thing, my phone really struggles with it. If you're someone who's looking at purchasing a second home here and you want to utilize it occasionally in the winter months, this one is really going to apply to you. It also applies to the locals. But anyway, that's seasonal access issues. During the winter months, we sometimes get very large snowstorms here that can make it very difficult for you to get to and from the city if you're taking something such as the Taconic to get from the Berkshires to New York City or the other way around. That stretch can be very difficult to travel and very dangerous directly after a snowstorm. And that applies to other sources of travel that get you in and out of Berkshire County. Furthermore, if you're actually planning to live here full time, we do have plow trucks that take care of the roads here. And some towns are certainly quicker than others to take care of the roads, and some towns are certainly better than others to take care of the roads. Oftentimes what we see is the most used roads get prioritized, especially if people travel at a higher rate of speed on these roads. But sometimes the road that you actually live on can get left till last, and you can sometimes have to wait up to a half a day before they finally get around to your street on their plow route. And that can be incredibly frustrating, especially if you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle that you can just plow through it and not worry about it with. Of course, this is an element that can be mitigated by having a more capable vehicle with four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive and a little bit of ground clearance to actually get you through some of the cruddy, slushy snow. But there is a point where even those vehicles are not going to be able to make it through. If we get 18 inches of snow overnight, you're waiting for those plow trucks to come and dig you out, no matter what you're driving. And continuing on the point of how harsh weather can affect the area, let's touch on property maintenance. In some parts of the country, I know the weather doesn't wear houses the same as it does here. For example, snow can form into ice dams on your roof and cause issues with water getting in. There's all sorts of ways that the more harsh weather conditions here and the seasonality actually can make your home need more maintenance. When you get into landscaping, the leaves falling can create quite a mess, and windstorms in the winter can accumulate quite a mess for you to clean up in the summer months. And just all around that home maintenance, it's probably a little bit more significant to take care of a property here rather than some other areas in the country that you could shop for a home. Moving on to travel convenience, and this is from a different point than what I was saying before with snow affecting your travel. I'm actually talking more about air travel. And we do actually have an airport in the Berkshires, but it's not a major enough airport that you're likely to be traveling from California directly into the Berkshires. You'd probably be traveling to Hartford, Connecticut, or Albany, New York, or even Boston or JFK in New York City, which means after your long flights that you're actually going to also have a bit of a drive on top of that to get to the Berkshires. It would be so nice to have a major airport here that could get us to all of those domestic locations such as Florida, California, or wherever you may be trying to come here from if you're buying a second home. but it's just one of those things that you should really take note of, that you're not done at the end of that flight. You are going to be driving from an airport, and that drive is going to be at least an hour if you're coming from Albany, an hour and a half from Hartford, or 3 hours or so if you're coming from New York City or Boston. Next up is local regulations and restrictions. If you have specific things that you're looking to do with a property, it's really important that you pay attention to this when you are shopping for homes, because every single town here is going to have different rules. Let's say that you want to buy a second home here and you want to rent it out as an Airbnb when you're not in town to generate a little bit of extra income from that property. Well, you better be very careful where you're shopping if you intend to do this. You see, if you're looking in Lenox and you really love that area, you should know that right now, as I'm recording this video, there's a 75-day limit on any sort of short-term rental property. And along with this, you need to get permission to do this from the town. In Great Barrington, you're only allowed to own one rental property, and once again, you need a permit there. However, there are towns that do not have regulations around that specifically, and I'm really just using this as an example. You also have to take into account the things that the Conservation Commission may require you to do, such as if you're buying a piece of land on a waterfront and you want to build a house right on top of the water, they're not going to let you do that. You're probably going to have at least a 100-foot setback that you're going to have to abide by. And all of that being said, those are just some examples. If you have specific questions on zoning, feel free to reach out to me. I'm a local real estate agent, and I'm happy to help you figure out if you're going to be able to do the things that you're looking to do with a property. And that's one of those points where that local knowledge really comes into play to help you with your real estate ventures here in Berkshire County. Now, this one can be a biggie here. We have very limited contractors here at this point, which means if you're buying something that you want to change and you want to make some upgrades to it, it's not that you can't do that. And of course, you can make your property into whatever you want it to be within those zoning regulations that we were just talking about. But I think it's important to know that builders and different types of contractors here have very long wait lists to get you the service you need to make your property into exactly what you want it to be. And the funny thing about this is it's usually the smaller projects that are actually more difficult to book. Contractors are typically a bit more ready to take on a major renovation project because they know that they're going to make more money off of that project. So they prioritize it over the little thing that you want to do. So if you're looking to build a brand new house, there can be wait times to get a good builder. If you're looking to make electrical upgrades to your house, getting electricians can be a little bit challenging. And I want to make sure that I'm clear that you can find these people. It's just maybe a bit more challenging to find them here than other parts of the country where you have a bit more of an abundance of tradespeople. If you can't handle the cold, this is not the place for you if you're looking at being here full time. Now, if you're gonna be using this property seasonally and you hate the winter months, but you also live in Florida and you just want to travel here in the summer, you can disregard this point entirely. It is warm and beautiful here in the summer. But in the winter, if you're planning on living here full time, it's important for you to know that we have cold, harsh winters. Sometimes they're not just snow, like we'll get sleet and rain, and it's just cold, and it can feel a little bit miserable, especially when, in my opinion, if it just would snow all winter, that would honestly be better than when we get freezing rain and it's just cold and like you can see like the dead grass outside and it's just not great. When we have snow, it is absolutely beautiful here. But all of that being said, it's important to note the cold, harsh winters here if you're considering moving here. For those of you that love shopping, I'm gonna just let you know that shopping here, there are some really great boutique shops in certain downtowns, but when it comes to having like a central location where you can go and you have all the shops that your heart can desire and you want to go to the Gucci and Louis store and you want to get your fancy bags or whatever, you know what I mean. It's a little bit more difficult here. And I do want to make sure that I'm giving the local business owners the credit that they deserve. There are some wonderful, small, quaint boutique shops in the Berkshires. But when it comes to like big box stores, we have them throughout the county, but for certain ones, depending on where you choose to settle down in the Berkshires, you may have a bit of a drive to get there. Some parts of the Berkshires, you might be 40 minutes from your Home Depot if you're trying to do some DIY home renovations. Or another really good example is we don't even have a Best Buy in Berkshire County. If I need camera gear or anything like that and I want to just go in person and pick it up so I can have it right now, I drive all the way to Albany to go to Best Buy, which is a full hour of driving. So just letting you know though that we don't even have all of the big box stores necessarily, and we have some great local shops, but it's still relatively limited. There are definitely some gaps in the shopping scene here, and you're gonna be traveling to get to this specific store for the specific thing that you need. And now for our final point, we have seasonal business closures here. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear with you. A lot of the businesses are open year round here. The whole world doesn't shut down here in the winter, but there are also some businesses that choose to only operate during the on season because it's just not profitable enough for them to be open here in the winter. And this really specifically applies to businesses that make the majority of their income off of tourism. Once again, want to be super clear. We do not completely shut down here in the winter. It's just, it goes back to that thing I was saying of there being less people here in the off season. And some of these business owners, they might even be doing it for personal reasons. Maybe they just like to take off to Florida for 3 months in the winter and escape the cold, harsh winter. But anyway, important to note that some things close down in the winter, and that's just part of living here. Anyway, finishing off the video, I want to be clear, the Berkshires has a ton of great things to offer. Make sure to go check out some of my other videos where we talk about pros and cons or the 7 things that you should know about the Berkshires. I'll link some of those at the end screen here. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Once again, please subscribe if you're not subscribed already and you like this content and you want to receive more of it. And if you do have questions about real estate in the Berkshires, make sure you reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any of your questions and also happy to help you purchase your home here in the Berkshires. See you in the next one.